Hello, welcome to another episode of The Jew and the Gentile. I am Pastor Samuel, one of your hosts. And to my right, to your left, is Jesse Reckelberg, one of our amazing elders here at New Life. I'm looking extra casual today because it's gonna be 87 degrees.
Nice and warm here.
You know what? I am wearing a tank top today.
Yes.
I also walked to church, so there you go.
Exactly.
That's my reasoning.
Yes.
All right.
It's a little too warm, too fast here in Wisconsin, but hey, we'll take it.
Turned around so fast.
Very.
So, last episode we touched on politics.
Yes.
And that's a vast conversation.
I think it's kind of almost endless.
Very endless. And so, I wanted to talk about that a little bit more today. And we were talking a little bit beforehand about some stuff. So, I think it's going to be a good episode.
I think so too.
And where I want to go with this a little bit is how do Christians, how do we disagree well? How do we enter this in a good way? Because I think I said it last time, but like people just say, oh, I don't like politics and I don't want that. And for the most part, a lot of people who say that are very much either in the midst of drama or in the midst of some, and a lot of drama is just, it's political in nature, right? And so it's ironic because I'm like, let's be real. Any person who says, oh, I hate drama, what do you automatically think?
You're a drama queen.
Yeah, there's so much drama in your life. I am scared now.
Right.
Because there's a world of drama that follows you.
Typically those people are the ones that say, I don't like drama, but yet it's because they don't handle drama from someone else very well.
Right.
But they want to be the center.
Yeah. Right.
Kind of thing, so. And
so kind of the same thing, like
yeah.
I don't like politics or whatever. It's like, okay, you could say that, but you're still the world, that's the world.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's politics.
Right.
Good or bad. It's either good because you know how to do that well, you know how to handle that well, or it's bad because you don't. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah.
And the church world again can go on all of these extremes, right? Like, oh yeah, we're not political here. It's like, well, that says something to me.
Right.
That communicates something to me. That usually means my experience. This is my opinion. This doesn't have to be true with everybody. My experience is that if there's a church culture or a group of people that, oh, we don't really do politics, that just means you go for the mainstream. Whatever is popular, that's what you believe.
No, I would agree with that.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the other extreme where it's like, if you don't vote red, you're going to hell.
Right. You don't know your Bible.
Yeah. And both of those are really gross in different ways. Even though I would, probably agree 90% with if you don't vote red, you're going to hell. The 10% I disagree with is the last part. And that's a whole nuanced conversation in itself, right?
Right.
So how do we actually do this well? And how can we encourage people to enter this realm of influence of the world?
Yeah.
because personally, I think it's very needed.
Right. I think last time I mentioned it, like when you look at the Greek and you look at politics, that you said the word influence, and that's actually what it means. Is influence, that you have influence to change something, influence to create a new idea or whatever, and the church has lost that.
Yeah.
They've just gone with the flow, or they've grumbled and complained about it.
Yeah.
And so those are the two extremes, and I think I'm summarizing what you're
Yeah.
saying.
Yeah.
Either you're grumbling or you're complaining about it, or you just go along with it.
Yeah.
And both are not good.
Right. And you couple that with our kind of like our demonization of like political system and all that. And it's like, it's so much easier to like talk about like, oh, we need to tear down the system, and it's like, oh yeah, like everything needs to go.
Right.
It's like, okay, we don't even need to help with that at this point.
No, I think it's pretty much...
It's going to do that itself.
Yeah,
right?
I think so.
So, like, as people who live in the kingdom and live for Jesus, and who actually, the intelligent version of that is like, how do we build, right?
Right.
How do we make this better? How do we build? Because it's tearing itself apart. How do we become the solution to that? And I think that's very much how, that's like very much how Jesus lived his life, right? It's like, how do we bring the solution?
Right.
And he spoke directly to issues. He spoke, he spoke to the political system, to his face, and said, "You whitewash tombs." Like,
yeah.
To the people that he already knew hated his guts.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, most people know, well, I shouldn't say that, but I mean, in the church, obviously, the biggest things you're going to deal with is the political spirit and the religious spirit.
Yeah.
And the problem with the religious spirit is it wants to cripple you.
Yeah.
It wants to keep you in a place, keep you subservient to this idea that the world tells you.
Yeah.
And say that it's okay. And so, I mean, there are extremes to both sides. The one extreme that I feel is sometimes is a little lacking. I mean, obviously, you look at our country, its foundation, like we talked, the foundation, the forefathers, and it was the Constitution, and it was based on kingdom ideals.
Yeah.
And a lot of people want to go back to that, but the reality of that is when that was created, the majority of the people are already believers.
Yes.
Now we live in this society where it's kind of this really big jumbled mess as far as belief systems and stuff.
Right.
So is it actually feasible? No, there has to be a step-by-step process of how we as Christians infiltrate and not push, but like introduce.
It's the leaven. It's the
yes.
It's the parable of leaven.
Right.
Right. It's like, it's not even that, like, because I think people have like negative connotation to infiltrate. Like, oh, you're trying to get your way in here and take over.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, no, that's why it's leaven. It's already in the bread. Like, it's an essential ingredient in the bread.
Mm-hmm. We
are that leaven.
Right.
But we haven't been leaven.
It's interesting because a lot of people think it's the opposite.
Right.
The leaven's bad. Well, that's not. It can be looked at it from both perspectives.
Right.
Don't get hung up on just semantics there. I mean, you can go deeper into the word and say, yes, we are the leaven also.
Yes. Right. And so we have been, like you said, crippled, and we've become very passive about it because it's like, it can get controversial, it can get really heated, and it can be a place where relationship can break, especially now. Like, if you do some reading about like 50 years ago, 100 years ago, people would sit around and like they'd like smoke cigars and have whiskey just to argue with each other and disagree and be friends.
Yeah. Exactly.
And they'd be like, yeah, that was a great time.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's like, oh, you disagree with me. Oh.
Yeah. Or even like sometimes they would actually have these public forums and they would sit there and argue with each other, but then like you said, they'd have the cigars after and they would
Yeah.
during the time they'd be sitting there yelling at each other.
Right.
And now they're smoking and drinking and saying, hey, dude, you're awesome.
Yeah.
Even though I totally disagree with you.
Right. Yeah. So, we've come a long way from that. And like, I think for me, one of the reasons why I'm passionate about this subject is that we have become so passive and we are like, oh, the world is so bad. The world is so bad. It's actually on us. It's on us. Where we are
Absolutely.
is 100% on us. God gave us all authority when he left this earth.
Mm-hmm.
From his physical body, he left this earth. He gave us all authority to go preach the gospel and make disciples of all nations.
Right. And, I'm sorry to interrupt there, but he gave us this beautiful country.
Yes.
Founded on
right
kingdom principles and said, hey, here you go.
Yes.
Do something with this.
Yes. A lot of the original states even made it a requirement that people who ran for office were a member of a church, were Christians, were they're like, if you're not, like, you can't do this job. Like, it's just impossible.
Mm-hmm.
And so
I've read that. Yes.
Regardless of how you feel about Donald Trump or whatever, like, this country it won't be saved by Donald Trump. It won't be saved by a good president. Mm-hmm. I just watched this video and I totally agree with this guy. He's like, if God sent us a godly candidate, most of the church wouldn't even vote for him.
Absolutely. Totally agree with that.
Because we have been so influenced and infiltrated by this placating spirit
mm-hmm.
and passivity and being being this version of Jesus that the world really caters to. Like, oh, you need to love. Like, it's just love. You gotta love and accept everything, and acceptance, like, doesn't equal love. Like, that's not how it works, right? Like, agreement doesn't equal love.
No, not at all.
And I say this to my kids in youth group, like, acceptance does not, wait, what did I say? What did I just say? Agreement does not equal love.
Right.
Because if agreement equaled love, then God would have to change his ways to ours.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
And so really what's happening, because that's what people's mindset is, agreement equals love, is we're fashioning God into our own image. Right? Which
is just idolatry.
Yeah. And so we have this hot mess, right? And I'm just like, when is the time that we're going to decide? Because there is very few times in history, I think, that it's been this weird.
Yeah. And to be honest with you, I think us as a church, New Life, and church globally, we have to understand that this political spirit, this idea of politics, basically has infiltrated us so bad that what it has done is it actually has created groups and subgroups within the church and belief systems. Instead of a unifying thing, it has actually divided us into our own political parties inside the church.
Yeah.
And that is a dangerous thing.
Very dangerous.
It's so dangerous. I mean, you can even at New Life, there's people that believe specific things about just think anything. Doesn't matter what it is. I'm not even talking about politics. I'm just talking about that divisive spirit that divides, and we need a unified thought process on what it looks like.
Yeah.
And to actually have this influence.
Right. And because of what we're living in. Like,
yes.
I watched this video of this lady, she's actually Canadian. And it's like way worse in Canada right now.
Oh
If
yeah.
you think it's crazy here, it's way worse. Um, and she was saying, yeah, we're going to start teaching religion in school. We're going to make the kids read the Bible and convert them. And we're going to baptize them without, parental permission, and make them into Christian, like make them into these religious people. And she's like, if that were true, and if the roles were reversed, there would be rioting and all kinds of craziness in the streets right now.
Right.
If that were true. And I was like, man, she is so right.
Yes. That's actually a huge revelation.
Yes.
And it's scary actually if you think about that.
Right. And we continue to sit back and we like I'm over apologizing for the truth. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of where it started.
Yeah.
Is I'm sorry that Jesus said it this way, but he did. Mm-hmm. It's like no. This is actually the truth, and this is what's going to be good.
Right. Yeah, I think you mentioned some pastor, not to mention
names
that you're watching. I don't go ahead and explain that, but
yeah, he was, and I actually enjoy a lot of his stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't remember his name either, but he was basically saying, I wish I was there when God decided there was two genders. He's like, there's only two genders. I wish there was other options. Like, God, can we have, option D, C, and what? I'm like, whoa.
That's the apology thing.
That's apologizing for the truth. That's apologizing for God's decision.
So God made a mistake.
I'm
that's
like,
scary.
Why? Like, no, we can't do this. No. We can't do this. Like, because what happens is, see, this whole politics thing, right? We could choose to ignore it. We can, and we have been.
For at least 50 years.
2023, this is what you get. And it takes that long, right?
Mm-hmm.
For things to go that crazy. But I'm a huge nerd, and I love World War II history. I love history in general, but
right.
I've dug deep into World War II. And like people just in Nazi Germany were like, oh, this can't last.
Mm-hmm.
Like they can't last forever. And they just were like going with the motions, because like at any given time, the Nazi Party only had 33% approval in that country.
Really? Look what they did.
Look at what they did. And people think, oh, not everybody thinks this way. It'll be fine. 33%.
That's scary.
33%.
And actually, to be honest with you, you love history. I've been actually doing a lot of reading and listening to podcasts about church history. And right now I'm listening to some stuff about the early church heresies.
Yeah.
And a lot of the heresies actually started with apologizing or trying to make it easier to understand, to make people more comfortable.
Right.
And before you know it, there's these blatant heresies like Arianism and all these different things that just pop up and blow up.
Yeah.
Because we don't want to deal with the hard truth and the hard facts.
Right. And we don't want to risk our reputation.
No.
And we don't want to put ourselves on the line for that.
Right.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just like, all right, man.
Yeah.
It's go time. We either need to enter this well and stand up for something while they're not killing us.
Right. Did you know that way back in the one of the heresies, I think it was talking about modalism, Athanasia. He was completely against this whole modalism and not to get into heresies, but what I'm trying to point is they actually gave him the nickname, and I don't remember what his name, but it was Athanasia against the world.
Mm.
And I was like, wow, that's think about that. The
Yeah.
burden he had,
Right.
and to be able to stand up and say, no, this is the truth.
Right.
I don't care if I'm the only one to speak it.
Yeah.
Athanasia against the world.
Yeah.
Which then, of course, we get the Athanasian Creed. But anyways,
Yeah.
but I don't want to go into that. But I thought that was really interesting. I was very powerful. Like, Athanasia against the world.
Yes.
Are you against the world?
Yeah.
Are you standing up for the truth and saying, you know what, this is the way it is. I will
Right.
not bend. I will not break.
Yeah.
I might die, but
Right. Because I mean, you look at the opposite end of the spectrum, which you don't have to look very far anymore.
no.
Like it used to be, like all of these things that we are seeing now would have been like, if you believed in them, you would have been the conspiracy theory guy.
Mm-hmm.
But now they're doing like Satanist rituals on live television
Mm-hmm.
at like Grammy Awards and stuff, and it's just like you don't have to look very far. It's there.
It's there. And we were just talking about that earlier about like Target with this new designer for transgender clothing and,
Yeah.
and his whole, they actually talked about Satan loves the multi-genders or
Yeah,
whatever it says.
He's
And,
like he'll use your pronouns or whatever. I don't know. He
Right.
accepts your
Yeah, it's-
something crazy.
but it's infiltrating schools and
Yeah.
all these different things. And we're just, well, I don't want
Yeah,
to upset the water.
yeah. I don't want to suffer the consequences
That too.
because they've been willing to, like, Western Christianity is not willing to suffer the consequences.
Mm-hmm.
But that religion, that left religion, that spectrum, they're so willing to. They have been willing to.
Yeah.
And they've been like just way more vocal, way more basically ungovernable. Like they'll just stand for what they want until they get it. And they'll burn cities down, right? Like we saw that happen. And we're like arguing about silly things. This has been my pet peeve for
That's
my
what I was
whole
saying. It's like it's
Christian
infiltrated
life.
the church. That's how it's infiltrated the church, is by dividing us into these weird subgroups.
Yeah,
And it's supposed to be us against the world. And we don't, not like we're supposed to attack the world, but like we're against the world system, the world,
Yeah.
the way the world thinks.
Yeah.
We're supposed to be the influencers.
yes, yeah. And so I guess like my charge right now is like we actually need to do this. So how are we going to do this? This is go time.
Mm-hmm.
Like we've been blessed in Western Christianity, the Western world. We don't die for our faith.
Mm-hmm.
And if you think they hate us now, just wait. Just give it like another year or two with the way things are going. Like you're scared to share your opinion right now. Soon you'll be scared to just say that you believe in Jesus.
Exactly.
That's the trajectory of where we're going.
Mm-hmm.
It's not unfeasible at this point in time. That's close.
If you're uncomfortable now, you need to actually check yourself and say,
Yeah.
why am I uncomfortable?
Yes.
Why am I afraid to say Jesus is the Lord of my life?
Yeah.
And why am I afraid to stand up for principles and,
Yes.
and the truth and just say, you know what, I will not bend, I will not break.
Right. I think part of the problem, you brought up principles, right? Like, I think part of the problem is we don't fully understand the principles
Mm-hmm.
and why they're there. Because if we did, we'd be able to have the conversation and know like, no, this is the right thing to believe.
Yeah, that's
You know what I
interesting.
mean?
Yeah. But again, watching those podcasts, one of the guys said something along the lines that, 70% of like Christians, younger, so like 30 and younger, actually still believe in modalism because they can't comprehend the Trinity.
Mm-hmm.
So they just make up their own thing because they actually have not really been taught the truth. So
Right.
when you don't know the truth, you can't stand up for the truth, and,
Right.
and then you just let things passively go by.
Right.
So we're uneducated. So we've actually become. It's going to sound terrible. We've actually become dumber as Christians.
Yeah.
I mean, we've dumbed ourselves down to society's level,
Yes.
and we have the wisdom of God.
Yeah.
That's scary.
Yeah. And so like, so when it's like that, we can't. It's harder for you because it's not settled within us to stand on like, no, there, like gender isn't this way. Like it can't be this way,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so standing up for anything is going to be extremely difficult and extremely uncomfortable because you're unsure.
Mm-hmm.
But if like I'm ready right now. Like
Yeah, me too.
I'm okay. You can cancel me. You can hate me. This is the way I live my life. It's like, okay, I can either be hated for standing something I believe in and something I'm passionate about, or you could just hate me because I'm a Christian. Because you're gonna hate me. Like that's what the That's what the Bible tells me. The world will hate you for Jesus.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
So, not that I want to be offensive, rude, disrespectful, but I'm going to stand up for what is true.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I've said this before, but I tell people under me, I tell myself, listen, you need to craft what you're saying and make sure that it is truth and not offensive so that if people are offended, you know it's only because you're speaking truth.
Right. Exactly. Watch your words.
Yeah. Which like kind of goes into a little bit more. That was my charge. That was my rant, right? Like we need to, it's go time. Let's stop being passive because if this is an option we have right now is to stand with this and know the principles, know that, right? And I think one of the elements that we also need to speak to is like I brought up, that the president's not going to save this. God's people will save this country. People. The guy's like, we don't have a power problem. We have a people problem. The powers that be are evil. It's a people problem.
Right.
We need God. We need revival. We need people to understand God, like our founding fathers knew.
Yeah, you can't legislate it into action too. You can't.
Right.
You can't expect the state senate to create these laws that protect us.
Right.
As in our faith, we have to come to the realization, like, you know what? I don't need them to protect me.
Right. Well, I think we talked about that last time.
That's why I brought it up. Yeah.
Right? Like we create all these messes by trying to legislate morality.
Right.
And the U.S. law code was supposed to be simple because people were Christians.
Right.
There was way less laws.
Yes.
There was way less laws.
I wonder how much paper that is that they wrote every law that we have now in the United States.
Yeah.
Probably enough to fill a state.
Probably.
It's crazy.
Talk about end global warming, save the earth. Right? Less laws.
Pretty much.
Read your Bible.
Right.
Write less laws. Have the Holy Spirit in you, convicting you.
Right. So how do we have influence?
So that's
the big thing.
That's the practical part, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's actually just learning to have big conversations and disagree,
mm-hmm.
and it's okay.
Right.
You know, I was just now I'm thinking like there's like way less actually big conversations had these days. You know, like around the dinner table, you just stumble into a big subject, right?
Or you talk about the Packers.
Right. Oh, yeah, sure. The Packers. You'd stumble into a big subject and you'd like talk it out and be like, well, what about this? Well, what about that? And blah, blah, blah. We don't do that anymore.
No.
As a society. We don't really sit around and talk about those things and like flush it out and just like without getting, well, we don't even get a chance to be angry. We all just do it on the internet now.
Well, it's interesting because, I mean, I think I mentioned this to you, but on Mother's Day, My two boys and my daughter-in-law, my wife were there, and so it was the five of us, and we actually had a pretty intense conversation
Right.
where there were disagreements,
Yeah.
but still we left the table, everybody loving on each other,
Right.
even though there was disagreement.
Yeah.
And it was actually like I sat back and I was like, "Wow, that was amazing, God. That's the way it's supposed to be."
Right. Yes.
It's okay, people. If you are upset with something, come tell me. Like,
Right.
my shoulders are big enough.
Yes.
I can handle
Yeah. And people, so
it.
one of the aspects I wanted to bring up is like honor doesn't mean that you agree with everything.
No.
It actually, you can, when you disagree, is actually the opportunity to show actual honor, right? And be like, disagree with what you're saying, but I'm going to honor you in this moment as a leader or whatever. Like, I disagree with that decision, but I'm going to honor you because you made it, and I'll back it up.
Right.
That's actually honor. And it's not honor for me to not say that I disagree.
But then go behind somebody else's back and
Yes.
say, I disagree with what
Yes.
you said here. I mean,
Yeah. It's actually
oh my gosh.
my obligation, if I really honor Pastor Eric and I don't agree with where whatever decision, where like some kind of direction or whatever, it's my obligation, if I want to honor him, to oppose it as much as I feel in my spirit and in my bones. Like, if I'm like, oh yeah, whatever, and then later on be like, yeah, I didn't agree with that.
Right. You don't have to ever actually have a resolution with someone agreeing with someone else.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing. Is like we have to this platform. Everybody wants to walk away like I'm going to say what I need to say, and you have to agree with me.
Yeah.
No.
Right. And that's I think that's a big key to us as God's people entering these conversations and entering into politics, entering into any actual substance, anything important, is that it's actually okay that somebody sees something differently than me. It's okay that, because like for the most part, on all political subjects, they're just doing that. Everyone cares about the subject at hand. They have different solutions. Right. And so when we talk about like, hey, we need to enter this space with honor, we need to enter serving, we need to enter with that heart posture, that doesn't mean that we're passive. That doesn't mean that we don't say I disagree. That doesn't mean that you don't get a group of people to say, hey, this is what we believe and this is what we would like as your constituents.
Right.
Or like, hey, actually, we really, really oppose this bill. We really oppose this idea in our, like, that's actually honor.
Right. Yeah, if you look at actually, I've said this a few times to numerous people, but like a belief system, what I have as far as politics are concerned is like, I'm just going to say it, obviously I float more red than anything, right? So, as far as I'm a lot more conservative than anything. But when you actually look at the left, the reality is they actually have a lot of good ideas.
Yeah.
Their implementation sucks.
Their ideology is weird.
Yes, but their implementation is the problem.
Yeah.
That's where it actually really goes falters. So let's say unemployment, for example. The idea of unemployment is actually not a bad idea. Like people who are unjustly fired or whatever. But the problem is the implementation is now you can not work for half a year if you do things just in the right way where you can get fired.
Yeah.
And it's actually trickery and deceiving happens, and before you know it, you don't actually have to work.
Yeah.
So the implementation sucks.
Yeah.
So and you go a broad spectrum of things that they talk about, and a lot of them aren't necessarily bad.
Right.
Like let's look at Social Security and retirement thing. Horrible implementation.
Yeah.
Should we take care of our elderly? Absolutely.
Right.
You know what I mean? But it's not. It's being implemented in the wrong way.
Right. Because it's actually not the political system's job to do those things.
Exactly.
Right.
it's because our belief system, our
Right.
morality is low.
Yes.
Like we have no morals as a society.
Yeah.
And now we've got this, the government has to take care of us.
Yeah.
And take care of the old people, have to take care of the special needs. They have to do all these different things. And
Again, it's ownership.
right.
Lack of the ownership. And it's interesting, like a lot of the spaces that the left is trying to fill is absence of the church.
Right.
Right? Like 100 years ago, it was churches that would take care of unemployed people. It was churches that would take care of the widows. It would, like they would be the community.
It was a mandate in the Bible.
Yes.
Widows.
Yeah.
And orphans.
And so we have, let that go. We've abdicated our role in that. And whenever we abdicate our roles, even just like we could bring this down to a household level. If you and I abdicate our role as the man of the house, this is not being sexist. This is just how it works, right? And it's so clear. I worked in the nursery with 4 and 5-year-olds. There's just something about a man's presence in a room. And a wonderful woman, godly person can say, hey, kids, let's do this. Not as much of a response. But if a man says, hey, kids, let's do this, they respond immediately. There's just something about it, right?
Right.
And so when we abdicate, this goes down so personal level. Like when we abdicate our roles, when we abdicate our power, when we abdicate our responsibilities, like your life is just not going to go well. Like you're not going to have, it's just going to be terrible, right? And then we wonder why.
Yeah.
And this happens to me all the time. Like, why am I just so frustrated with this part of my life? Why is this? And the Lord's like, it's because you didn't take responsibility for it. You didn't actually do the stuff that you needed to do.
Right.
And so you didn't communicate what you needed to communicate. You were handing that off to your wife. You were making that her responsibility. That's yours.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh dang.
Right. That sounds like a good another podcast, like Family Life.
Yes.
That might be one of the ones we have to do pretty soon.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Yeah, it is. And so
you have a valid point, though.
Right. And so you get that up to the church level. We've abdicated our responsibility.
Right.
In discipline. It's very similar because it's supposed to be the family of God, right?
Right.
And the church leadership are supposed to be the ones nurturing and taking care of God's people with, God the Father.
Right.
And so we've taken that away. And so now what we have is a political system that has no authority, has no actual mandate from the Lord, no way of really truly implementing this well.
Exactly.
Trying to fill those roles. And a lot of people have really great hearts behind it. Super great hearts behind it.
Yeah, like I was saying before, yeah.
But when you actually logically go through those ideas, it's illogical. It just can't work, right?
Exactly.
But it's another religion. So they have faith in this thing that's impossible because it's empowered by no one. It doesn't have God's power behind it. It doesn't have his anointing on it.
That's a good word.
It doesn't have that behind it. And so now then what happens is there's a back door because that political system by and large rejects God. Right? So what is open to it, right? Why are we seeing all these Satanists all of a sudden, right? Well, they've rejected God. There's no neutral ground here. There's no demilitarized zone. So either you accept God or you accept Satan.
Pretty much.
So we've abdicated our power. We've abdicated our responsibility. And now that political system is trying to take those things, and they could have the greatest hearts, but it's going to be twisted because it's humanity without its source, which is going to be the enemy's playing ground, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like if we're all degenerated human beings, we're not regenerated,
No.
then it's going to have destruction at the end of it, right?
Exactly.
Because you can't legislate morality. You can't make it happen. Hence why Jesus came.
Exactly. That's insane.
So we know the truth and we have different solutions, right? And I mean, I think I'm more red than most Republicans. I don't
I would say
full truth. I'm
I
pretty
would
disappointed with the Republican Party.
Yeah, I was just gonna say. I mean, that's the problem too. I mean, the political landscape has changed so much that just because somebody calls themselves Republican, I don't even know if most people even know what that means anymore.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
You know, and then of course they're creating the new party, the Libertarian Party, and it's getting a little more steam, and they're saying this is the true conservative, but the reality is it's we're putting our faith in something that we just can't.
Yeah.
You can't do it.
Yes. Yeah. At this point, there needs to be revival in order to save our political system. That's what I believe.
I believe the same thing.
And so, like, again, I think it's actually very connected because the Republican Party, for the most part, is like the only place. Okay, this is my opinion. You can hate me or whatever. Clearly, I don't care. For the most part, is like the only place where Christians can go. At this point, I don't see how you can vote Democrat with the platform that they have that supports, killing babies, supports
the LGBTQ.
Yeah, all of this stuff.
Socialism,
pedophilia, socialism, all of these things that are very destructive. I don't see, like, I could never do that. Because of what I've read in the Bible, what I know of Jesus, I can't ever, there's no way I can support that.
I just read something the other day about socialism, which is pretty interesting. It's basically the doctrine of envy.
Yeah.
Basically, I envy what you have, now give it to me.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, well, that's actually a really good definition.
And it always ends in slavery.
Every single time.
And slavery, like, in the South, is a very good depiction of socialism because you didn't own anything. Everyone worked the same. You own nothing and you'll be happy is their new mantra. Right? And it's like, well, that's sounds like slavery to me.
Sounds like it's me too.
So.
And again, that's people expecting the government to fill their needs.
Yes.
And that's never going to happen.
No.
Not the way you're anticipating it's going to happen.
Right. Because you can't. My needs are different than your needs. I'm a different person than you are.
Different age, different, I'm way better looking. No,
yeah, totally.
Sorry.
No, don't apologize. You wear that. You own that.
That's true. I do say that a lot.
And so I was going to say, I feel like that because like the Republican Party has kind of become the Christian party, they've also been, whenever they're in power, they've been more passive and more nice. And like, okay, but these are the principles that we believe. Why aren't we actually living them out? Why aren't we actually voting these things? Like, why aren't we actually doing these things?
Right.
Right?
Because of what we said. It's infiltrated the church first.
Yes.
And now that has been taken to the government, politics,
Yeah.
and...
Yeah. So it's like, oh, we'll just, keep everything. We just want to be nice for everybody. We want to keep everything peaceful and normal. We don't want to offend anybody.
Yeah.
And I'm not out here set to offend people. I'm out here wanting the truth, and I want to implement the truth, and I want to implement righteousness. I want to implement the things, godly things. We can't do that by appeasing people, but we can't do that by disrespecting people either.
Right.
And I think articulating our beliefs and our points while continuing to respect people
Mm-hmm.
is a very big lost art.
It is. What I would tell people too is that when you disagree with someone, it's going to be extremely uncomfortable.
Right.
But realize as a believer, uncomfortable is actually a good place to be.
Right.
It's probably the most special place to be. I mean, Lori my wife was listening to a message by Chris Volaton,
Mm-hmm.
and he was talking about, like spiritual growth doesn't happen when you're comfortable.
Right.
And so, like, even now, he's forcing himself to get up really early in the morning to make himself uncomfortable because he realized his life was becoming too comfortable.
Right.
And so he forced himself into uncomfortability.
Yeah.
And then because he wants to continue to grow in the Lord. And
Yeah.
so when you take that and you throw that into like this whole politics arena, it's like you have a position, you have a place where God has put you, whatever it is, whether it's, I'm in a restaurant, right? There's people that work in construction sites. There's people who work in politics or work with politicians.
Yeah.
That's your area that God has put you in. You have influence.
Yep.
And yeah. That's about the time where I'll be like, okay, should we offend someone that we know that we love? When I talk about the, areas of influence,
Oh yeah.
Bill Johnson brought up the seven mountain mandate, so to
Mm-hmm.
speak.
That's actually a pretty old idea.
Yes, I think the 1970s.
Yeah.
I think it started with like Lance Walnu. Actually, it started with someone else, Bill Bright. I think it was where it started, and then Lance Walnu picked it up a little bit later.
Yeah.
And then it went in, and then Bill Johnson wrote a book on the seven mountain mandates.
It was him and Lance, actually.
Oh, it's both of them?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. But I think Bill Bright and two other people that I don't know who they are the ones that kind of talked about it in the 70s, and then it kind of fell by the wayside.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So there's 7 mountains of influence in the world.
Mm-hmm.
I forget all of them.
It's like, it's politics.
Yes, it's definitely one of them.
Politics, education. Let's see here. Look it up, Jesse. Come on.
Church, family, education, government, media, arts, and commerce are the 7 mountains.
Church, media.
Church, family, education, government, media, arts, and commerce.
Yes.
And so we've actually agreed to relegate ourselves to the church.
Right.
By and large, that's how the Christian world has, at least the Western Christian world has operated, is that you just stick to your church thing. Again, that separation of church and state idea that the church was supposed to be separated from the government for the protection of the government. In actuality, that's completely reversed. The church separation of church and state was for the protection of the church against the state. And the church was there on purpose to check the morality of society and the government and speak into government. And so we've kind of, I mean, even now, looking at this, we don't even, the church doesn't even talk about, like, we we kind of step around, we like tiptoe into family.
Yeah, and we have, I mean, don't get me wrong, these are good, but like we have the small Christian schools.
Yeah.
We talked about it in one of our earlier podcasts. We have kind of sucky movies.
Yep.
And music.
Yeah.
To be, there's a couple, Epoch Times is a great resource as far as the reading material, like as far as media is concerned.
Yeah.
But the reality is none of them.
Yeah. And that's frightening because I would think to look at this list and that the church still speaks into family a lot. But I'm like,
yeah,
we don't really. all that much.
No. And obviously you went to Bethel for 3 years.
6 years, actually.
6?
So I was there. I did 3 years of school, and then
Okay,
I
3
worked there
years.
for 3 years
Okay,
afterwards.
okay. I meant the schooling, but I didn't
Okay.
realize you were there 6 years. Wow,
Yeah.
that's crazy. But, can you briefly explain how the influence of the church in that specific city, when it used to be called
Sure.
Poverty Flats or something like
Yeah.
that?
So it used to be called Poverty Flats, and actually in the 60s and 70s, most of the people there were still subsistent living. They were still living off the land, hunting and stuff.
Really?
Yeah. And Band of Brothers?
Yes.
One of the guys from Easy Company ended up in Redding, California.
No way.
Yeah. Fun fact.
Wow, I haven't watched that in a long time. Wow.
I was like, what?
Wow.
So it used to be a logging town,
Mm-hmm.
very, nothing really there. And the church was founded in 1954 there.
Yes, I think I knew that, yeah.
But for them, they kind of, it's a very, it's a hard position for them to have, because it's one of the very few reasons people even come to Redding, because there's nothing there.
Mm-hmm.
There's Redding has one escalator.
I think Green Bay only has one now. But anyways.
Only one escalator. There's the Sundial Bridge, and then there's Simpson University.
Okay.
Those are the three. There's Bethel. Either you come for Bethel, Simpson University, or you're just driving through. There's no reason. And Simpson University is a private Christian school, private Christian college. Super cool. A.W. Tozer went there.
Yes, I think I knew that, yeah.
And so they try their very best to serve and go low with them.
In the city.
Mm-hmm. And they give to the city. In the school, they have their students, which they have about 3,000 students at BSM, the school I went to.
Mm-hmm.
They used to call it city service. I don't know what they call it anymore. But you would go and serve the city in some way 1 day a week for a couple hours. So, and then there would be other separate days where your whole group that you were a part of, because the school's so big that you basically broke down into little churches. There'd be 65 people in one group. And anyway, you would go to different parts of the city and just clean up trash, clean up stuff, trim bushes, all this kind of stuff. Okay? So they are very purposefully serving the city. And they didn't have anybody, they were they don't want anybody running for anything because it's so big. So this church has about 10,000 people in it in a 90,000 city.
A little over 10%, 12%, something like that. Yeah.
So it's you can go anywhere and you're probably going to run into a Bethel person.
Right.
So there's this stigma that they're trying to take over, right? That's what everyone's fear is. Oh, you're just trying to take over the city.
Right.
You're trying to get, what you want. It's so the opposite of that. The Civic Auditorium in Redding was going to be torn down and destroyed. But they needed a spot for the school because it was getting so big. So they rent it from the city and they manage it for them and get bands and everything to come to that place for the city. And then, the city's making money off of this stuff.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, so they saved the Civic Auditorium for the city.
Wow.
And so then a couple years ago, they were going to have to cut police funding. So there was going to be 4 less cops or whatever. And they're like, we can't do that. The city needs those cops. What can we do?
Mm-hmm.
And so they gave money to support 4 cops. Yeah.
That's insane.
Yes. And so they do a lot of things. They work with the airport, the Reading Airport, because for the most part, anyone who's flying in is going for Bethel.
Pretty much.
So they're like, how can we help you? How can we make this, so they have people serving everywhere. And during COVID, they worked really hard to submit to the city's requirements, which was really hard when you have a 10,000 person church. So they shut down for a long time. Hence why I lost my job, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I worked there at the bookstore on the church grounds, which was shut down. So they were doing everything they could to go low, to serve. And I mean, people can argue which way, whatever, right?
Say okay, that's just, that's the political spirit. Stop.
Yeah. So like, they influence the way that I was taught, the way that they want it to be implemented as someone who has left the school, who's graduated, is that you serve and you go in low. You don't bring your agenda. You honor those in leadership. You find somewhere, and that's how you do it.
Right. I think that's the biggest fear too, because a lot of people will say, like, when you talk about the 7-1 mandate, they think of it as infiltration,
Yeah.
instead of influence.
Yes.
Where that sounds more like influence,
right,
and helping.
Yeah.
Instead of like, I'm going to take over.
If they wanted to, they could have a long time ago.
Exactly.
They have like more than 10% of the city's population. They could pick probably, 100 candidates that would be great.
And the city would become theirs, and
yes.
blah, blah, blah.
If they wanted to fully just invade and take over, right, in those terms, they could theoretically do that.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's just such a big force. Like, if you think about it, it's a huge force. I mean, if it wasn't for Bethel at this point, Redding, California's like economy would be dead. Imagine like not having 10,000 people there, and like students coming in, people coming in,
spending money,
renting properties, renting places, right? As a big portion of your economy gone. And so they have to do a very good job of being servants. One of my favorite quotes from Bill Johnson is, serve like a king. And wait, no. Oh, I say it all the time and I can't remember it. Oh, serve as a king, rule as a servant.
Interesting. I've never heard that before.
Serve as a king, like you have all the resources in the world that you need, and rule as a servant.
And that's truly influence.
And that's truly influence, and that's what that's a great summarization of how Jesus did it. He served like a king, and he ruled like a servant.
Interesting.
He served as if he had all the resources he needed. He multiplied food. He healed the sick. He raised the dead. No resources were lacking. And he ruled as a servant. He washed the disciples' feet, right? He talked to the tax collector.
Fed the thousands.
He fed the thousands. He went to the prostitutes, right?
Yeah.
And so that right there is good advice for every part of your life, but as well with politics, right? If I'm serving like a king, a lot of times we as Christians feel like that we're the rebel force holding on for hope, and that we're
this
just
is not Hoth. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, and we're just battle hardened, beleaguered, and we're running out of resources, and Jesus better come back soon. So no, we have the kingdom of God on our side. We are the occupying force. We have everything we need. And so then we need to make sure that attitude doesn't breed arrogance and pride, and that you should listen to me.
Right.
We should go in and rule as servants.
It's so true.
No one would be upset about Jesus coming to anything.
No.
Right?
No. I mean, there is a difference. I mean, even as a business owner, I mean, when you actually live Jesus.
Yeah.
The amount of influence you have in people's lives just multiplies.
Yeah.
And this is just in a business platform, of course. I mean, obviously, I heard of there's a pizza place out in Bethel too.
Yes.
Yeah, and I've heard a couple different people talk about it. How about when you walk in, I mean, you just know. And then people that I know that were out there, they sat down and they're like, what is it with this place? You can just, it's just something different. And then the server said, we worship God here.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's the goal, right?
Yeah.
That's the end goal, is to make disciples and all that kind of thing. But it starts with influence.
Yeah.
And coming in low, like you said, and just serving as best as you can.
Yeah. And entering this space, right? Like, actually, let's have the hard conversations.
Mm-hmm.
Let's not just be passive about this. What is, have the conversation with yourself. Do some digging for yourself and be like, how do I feel about abortion?
Mm-hmm.
Why is it wrong? What does it actually mean? Because, I mean, there's plenty of people who in Roe versus, this was baffling to me. When Roe versus Wade was overturned, the amount of people who were not celebrating as Christians was boggling.
True.
We should have been a lot more happy about it. And, Pastor Eric mentioned something about it, and it was, everyone's, was just, silent. And I'm like...
Yeah, I would have to say that I was one of them. I mean, internally, I already had celebrated, so maybe that's the reason why. I don't know.
No, it just felt awkward in the room.
It did feel awkward.
It just felt like, oh, should we
clap? Are we afraid to clap?
Yeah, oh, I don't know. And I'm like, man, this is crazy. I remember being in high school, and I had an atheist friend. Atheists love me.
Yep.
And he and I were buddies, and we got along, and we disagreed, and it was fine. It was amazing. He's probably super lefty now. I mean, he was back then too. He loved Obama and everything. That was the days of Obama and all that. Nothing's changed. I'm just kidding. Maybe I'm kidding. Maybe I'm not.
It's just getting worse. No, I'm sorry.
And he's like, because I was clearly against abortion. I just didn't hide it. He's like, well, it's never going to change. It won't be overturned ever. I was like, well, that's what they said about slavery too. How do you know? How do you know it can't change? He's like, it won't. It just never will. So get over it. And when that happened, I just immediately thought of him. I was like, what about that now, Connor? What about that now, huh?
Bad you don't have his number.
I know. I don't even know.
Actually, to be honest with you, some of the best conversations I've ever had about God have been with atheists.
Yes.
And people are so afraid of atheists, too. It's like, no, actually, the ones you see on YouTube that are having these heated discussions, they're not real. They don't even know what they're talking about.
No.
But the true atheists, they actually can have a really intelligent conversation.
Mm-hmm. They're actually probably more hungry than most of us.
Right.
He read the entire Bible, my friend. He read the entire Bible, and he's like, nothing happened for me. I don't get it. Nothing's there.
Okay.
And I was like, well, I mean, you can read a lot of books and nothing happens to you.
True.
It's not just the Bible that's important about Christianity.
No.
So it was an interesting time. But my point being, enter the spaces, have the conversations for yourself. Don't be afraid of these big things. We desperately need Christians who will stop the rat race of all of this stuff that doesn't matter. Like Christy Johnson was talking about.
Mm-hmm.
We all spend time on our phones. We don't even know what to do with. We don't have our phone.
Mm-hmm.
Scrolling.
Yeah, what, 8 seconds
Yeah.
attention span or whatever?
8-second attention span.
Which is really scary if you think about it.
Sitting there on the toilet for 30 minutes with your phone while you poop. I was very convicted.
Were you?
I was like, why are you calling me out, Christy? Why are you doing that, man? But, you know, we have all this time for all of these other things. How come we don't have time to research and discuss important things that are devastating to our culture and our society and our lives? You know? It's just a very sad truth.
Exactly.
We're so busy being entertained and feeling luxury.
Yeah, isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
I mean, how hard would it be to call up your local government and say, hey, I'm a Christian. What can I do to help?
Yeah.
Especially if they swing left. Who cares?
Yeah.
Who cares? Why don't you serve, you know?
Yeah.
Volunteer, whatever it is. Where do you need help in?
Right. Yeah. They wouldn't know what to do.
No. They would probably be like, this guy's got an agenda.
Yes. They wouldn't even know what to do with that.
Right.
Because nobody does that.
No. Not even the people on the left.
Yeah. Yeah. So, like, to do that would be earth-shattering.
Right. It's actually really weird because this has actually been on Lori and our heart lately when it comes to, we weren't even thinking politics, but we know a few people, and it's just like, I have their phone numbers. Like,
yeah,
Lori's been itching, like pushing me to call this one specific person we know, and it's like, I have been a little bit worried. Like, I don't want him to have that perception of me wanting to infiltrate, me wanting something.
Yeah.
When really, all I want to do is just help, because whatever that looks like, you know. So.
Yeah.
I don't know. What does that look like? I don't know. So.
Well, that's why Proverbs says when you're in the presence of kings, put a knife to your throat and don't eat his delicacies.
Okay, yeah, I remember the proverb, but I don't know where you're going with that.
It's like, because you're going to be, if you serve and you're there, you're going to have opportunity to bring things to him that are a part of your agenda. They're going to be what you want or whatever. You know, it's like, don't do that.
Ah. Interesting.
Eat of his delicacies. You know,
it's one of those proverbs that really kind of always escaped me a little bit.
Oh, really?
I'm a proverbs person, but that one actually does kind of that.
Yeah, that's what it means, right? Because you're eating of his delicacies. Obviously, it could be food, drink, or whatever.
Right.
But like nowadays, it'd be like of his power, like of his influence. You're eating of it. It's like, because you could, let's say, I'm serving a super rich guy, and I'm like serving him for a while, and then I have money problems or whatever, and be like, hey man, I need some money. I'm trying to eat of his delicacies, right? And he'd probably be like, oh, sure, I'll help you. But something would change in that moment, right? Because now I've become what everybody else is. He just wants his money.
Interesting. Maybe that's the reason why I had that fear. Like,
yes.
Like, because, internally I know, and I'm just admitting, I did have a little bit of a worry there. Like, I don't want to come in there with my agenda. I want to go low.
Yeah.
And keeping myself in that place, like, hey, I don't want, so the knife to the throat is actually a really good picture of how you approach that.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So that would be the best thing to do, is find somewhere to serve like that. And for goodness sakes, read the Constitution. Read the Founding Fathers. They were brilliant people. They had a lot of the issues that we're fighting over right now have already been fought over by people who are vastly more intelligent than us.
Right.
We think that because we have technology and that we're like 200 years later that somehow we're smarter. My goodness, you go
Yeah,
read
I
what
gotta look
they
at some.
say and how they articulate their points and the things that they wrestle with. I'm like, wow, we have not gotten better.
No.
I've the like
Just
so
read Thomas Jefferson. If you want to have your
yeah
mind like
yeah.
that.
One of the Federalist Papers. Have you
Oh,
read those?
no, I have not, but I've heard
They
I
are
guess
because they're arguing over this is in between like so the United States at first was a confederation and then they were like there wasn't enough central power, so like nothing was working, nothing at all. And so they're like we need to write a constitution and become something better than what we are.
right.
And so they were writing the constitution, and in that time there was all of these arguments, and that's what the Federalist Papers are. And it's just like
Letters back and forth.
like in newspapers and all this kind of stuff, like
right,
people
yeah.
saying their opinion, and you're like, man, we're still arguing over the same stuff, and we're still like, and they came up with a conclusion in the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. Just saying.
Wow. Yeah, we are definitely not smarter.
No, I'm sorry.
The
The majority of
how
us
many years later?
are not smarter than the founding fathers.
Wow.
So, yeah, like it's, I mean, for some people it may not be interesting, but I think it's important. And there's really great resources out there that you could do courses online and have smart people, smarter than me, smarter than most people, talk to you, explain what the Constitution is, why this matters, and you will be really impressed and surprised. I think most people are going to be very surprised if you do this. You'll be surprised at how much of like Judeo-Christian values are woven in to our laws, woven into the Constitution, woven into the Bill of Rights. They're all based on Scripture.
Yeah.
And so just do it. We got to do it.
Right. And know your truth. Know the truth. I mean,
Know the truth.
I mean, I think we've said this a few times for these last couple of podcasts, but really, people, you gotta read the word.
Yes,
you really do.
absolutely.
Because if you don't, I was reading a book by Witness Lee.
I don't know.
He is a protege of Watchman Nee.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So those guys from China, blah blah blah, and he kind of went off the deep end a little bit at the end, which a lot of the big name people they tend to do sometimes. But
Yeah.
But he says, when reading the scriptures, you have to understand that there are two main loaves of bread, and in the word, the first one is Proverbs because it's a denial of self.
Yeah.
And then Ecclesiastes is a denial of the world. And he says, if you really want to seek true wisdom, read those things.
Yes.
But it's not just, not denigrating the entire Bible. I'm just saying, like, get that there's so much wisdom, there's so much truth. And as you do that, you end up being able to understand and actually identify the how politics is just kind of going out of whack.
Yeah.
And how you can actually insert yourself and serve.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
But as you can see, you brought up that proverb. Like, interesting. That actually solved my problem.
Yeah. It's all in there.
Right. And I know exactly where the proverb is, too. In my mind, I'm like, I know where that is. Never understood it.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It's true.
So, yeah.
There's something you just said that I was going to say something.
I don't know. I was talking about the loaves of bread.
Yeah. Oh, self-denial.
Yes.
That's what it is. That's a huge thing that I feel our society and therefore a large portion of our Christian experience has lost.
Mm-hmm.
And also why we don't enter into uncomfortable spaces is because we're not denying ourselves.
No.
For like, let's think about it. Why don't we enter into the political space? Because it's uncomfortable and it's
Very.
dangerous to our personal influence, our personal reputation, our personal finance at this point,
Everything. Yep.
everything.
Yep.
We don't enter into it because it is detrimental to us. And at the root of that is fear of losing something for us. And I think, a lot of politics changes when you have children, right? Because now you're not just thinking about yourself.
Exactly.
You're thinking about the future. But as Christians, we have to be thinking in such a way that's beyond ourselves. That is beyond, we have to deny ourselves. And a lot of the world right now is all about
Ourselves.
Mm-hmm. It's about actualizing you and like you be your best you. And I'm like, okay, I agree with that. You need to be the best you, but not for you. It's to deny yourself, pick up your cross, and follow me.
Yeah. Denying yourself really, I mean, you brought up the word, or say it when you said, like with Bethel and just even throughout the conversation, a coming in low.
Yeah.
The only way you can come in low is if you deny yourself.
Yeah.
There is no other way around it.
Yeah.
You can't come in high and expect radical change.
Right.
You just can't. So, yeah.
Yeah, and it makes me think of Jesus, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because the Bible says, I believe this is Colossians. I think it's like one of the most profound sections. So this is like I think this was like one of the things that people would say in the early church, that they would, it was almost like a creed back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
So he is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn over all creation, for by him all things were created that are in heaven and that are on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or dominions or principalities or power. All things were created through him and for him. And he is before all things, and in him all things consist. And he is the head of the body, the church, who is the beginning, the firstborn from the dead, that in all things he may have the preeminence. For it pleased the Father that in him all the fullness should dwell, and by him to reconcile all things to himself, by him whether things on earth or things in heaven, having made peace through the blood of the cross. And you were once alienated and enemies in your mind by wicked works, yet now he has reconciled you in the body of his flesh through death, to present you holy and blameless and above reproach in his sight. If indeed you continue in the faith, grounded and steadfast, and are not moved away from the hope of the gospel which you heard, which was preached in every creature under heaven, of which I, Paul, became a minister. And then that other scripture is that he...
Philippians 2, verse 6. I got it right here.
Okay, you got it.
So actually, have this mind among yourselves, which is yours
Yes.
in Christ Jesus, who, though he was in the form of God, did not count equality with God a thing to be grasped, but emptied himself by taking the form of a servant, being born in the likeness of men.
Yeah. So you have God of the universe.
Mm-hmm.
He denied his place in heaven to come.
His rightful place.
His rightful place.
Yeah.
He gave up everything. He gave up. Christ became poor. Yeah. You would be poor too if you left heaven as as God's son. Like anybody, Donald Trump, Bill Gates, they'd still be poor.
Right. Yeah, I think we talked about that in the one podcast. Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
So he gave up everything, denied himself, and died for us. And so, I think that's really what bothers me a lot of when we wash our hands of it.
Right.
Because at the root of it, it's either just, it's not even laziness. It's fear. Mm-hmm. Right?
Well, the other thing too, like if you look at that scripture, if we are trying to mimic the life of Jesus, As Christians, we own this place.
Yeah.
Empty yourself and become a servant.
Yeah.
Your rightful place is to rule, to reign.
Yeah.
But empty yourself, just like Christ did, and become a servant.
Yeah.
In all areas of whatever area of influence you're in.
Yeah. And that means confronting lies and unrighteousness.
Mm-hmm.
And like if you read the Gospels, turning every corner, Jesus is confronting something, like he's healing on the Sabbath. It puts the Pharisees and the political system just in an uproar.
Right.
And he's like, no, this is the will of the Father. Right?
Yeah.
Drink my blood and eat my flesh.
Mm-hmm. Right. And avoid your agenda, too.
Yes.
Joseph could have probably easily taken over after the 7 years of drought.
Yeah.
Because of his genius.
Yeah.
They still served.
Yeah.
Daniel and Nebuchadnezzar. I mean, we can go on and on.
Yeah.
That the people that actually went in, served, went low.
Yeah.
And actually did some amazing things. Nehemiah.
Yeah.
I mean, you can go on and on and on about how they actually served in the political atmosphere, and God just kind of did some crazy stuff.
Right. Yeah, Daniel and Nehemiah, they served wicked kings.
Mm-hmm.
And because they served the Lord and served them, and like Daniel, the king at the time, went freaking crazy.
Yeah, Nebuchadnezzar, yep.
He went nuts in the wilderness because he wanted to build his own statue, like this
made out of gold, yeah.
Made out of gold, right? And he went loony.
Right. Got to eat grass for 7 years.
And then he met God.
Mm-hmm.
Turned his life around and came and humbled himself to the Lord. And he came back and he didn't say that I'm nothing. He said, "Oh, I am great." And I submit to God, basically.
Right.
Just interesting progression.
Very interesting progression.
And then a revival happened.
Yes.
Daniel never ran for office, never took the throne.
Nope.
He was basically a wizard.
Pretty much.
In whatever religion that was at the time in Babylon.
Mm-hmm.
What did they call him? You remember?
That's not Zastros. No.
Anyway.
I can't remember what it's
Anyway, he served so much that he answered to a name that was in a different language. And it meant
Balthazar.
Yeah.
I can't remember how I pronounce it. But.
And so, we need to have that heart posture. Maybe you do run. Maybe you don't. You're just serving. Maybe the best way you can serve is to run. And you...
Yeah, don't... Yeah,
and you go in low, you serve, you are respectful, you're honoring to the opposition. And I would just love to see that in our political system of like, no, you have principles, you stand for them, and you're not going to go low and dirty. You're going to stand for what you stand for, and you're going to keep it respectful. You know how much people would like, wow, that's good. I don't even necessarily agree with you, but I respect you.
Mm-hmm.
Respect will get you way more influence than being right.
Right. And where can I find more of you?
Yeah.
Really? In the church?
Yeah.
And then there you have it, people.
Yes.
It's actually so simple.
Yeah.
But yet we freak out about it.
Right.
Yeah.
And Nehemiah, right? He served an evil king.
Mm-hmm. Xerxes.
And he brought his...
Xerxes? I think it was.
I think so.
Yeah.
He brought his request to rebuild his city.
Mm-hmm.
And we think, we always think that we have to be in opposition in order for us to rebuild.
Mm, yeah.
What if we served I guarantee you, Daniel and Nehemiah had opposing opinions, and they brought them to the king. That was their job. Like Daniel opposed the king to his face multiple times, and he was kept there because of it.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't mean that because we are going in low that we don't oppose. But it also doesn't mean that because we enter it, we need to actually be on the throne, quote unquote.
Yeah, and Daniel too. We forget too that it was multiple kings. It wasn't just
Yes.
one.
Yeah.
I mean, Darius and the handwriting on the wall, all that kind of stuff. But that was Darius, right? With the handwriting on the wall.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, or is that
I think
Cyrus?
so.
Or is that Cyrus?
I get confused with all because the timeline is confusing to me.
Yeah, it is
I
very
don't know.
confusing. But ultimately, he was there through a pretty big chunk of timeline.
Yes.
And he just served.
Yeah.
And said what he had to say, and then whatever happened, happened.
And it preserved the people of God in order that they would go back to their homeland.
Right.
Like no other time in history. Like that's such a unique story that a people group would go in exile and then come back still as a people group with those customs.
Yeah.
If you research that doesn't happen.
Normally you absorb them and that kind of thing.
Yes, that's like that. I don't think that's ever happened again or since.
I don't think so. I think you're right.
And so, just don't discount what actually just knowing the Lord, standing for the truth, and being respectful, honoring, and entering the conversation can do.
Actually, and for you beautiful ladies out there, another good example is Esther.
Yes.
So don't discount yourself. We're not talking just to men here. We're talking
absolutely.
men and women. You have equal authority. You have equal influence.
Yeah. Have you noticed how many female politicians there are right now?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And really rad ones.
Mm-hmm. There's a few. There are a few that are on fire.
Spicy.
Very.
Like, I'm like, yes, go for it.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So, yeah, I think that wraps it up. You got any more final thoughts?
No, I think that's pretty much it for me.
Yeah.
Just going low, people.
Going low.
In the church.
Yes.
In your place of business, in politics, whatever it is, whatever situation, every day you find yourself in, just go on and just serve. And watch things happen.
Serve like a king, rule like a servant.
Yes.
Enter into these areas, like, you know what? Let's get off the TV. Let's get off the iPhone. Let's get off the Instagram or whatever. And let's educate ourselves about things that really matter.
Right.
And enter these things. Our children's lives depend on it. Our country depends on it.
Yes.
And more importantly, let's pursue Jesus and let your politics be a beautiful byproduct of that.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
The Salvation Army, I think I maybe talked about this last time.
I think you touched on it just a little bit. But
The Salvation Army and William Booth, who's the head of Salvation Army, are accredited to stopping a civil war in the United Kingdom because they brought revival.
I got more studying to do.
Yeah.
Darn it.
Yeah. Always.
It's like,
always.
You can only read so many books at a time. So.
And they opposed the culture of the time so much. They were called the Salvation Army because they were getting so opposed. They were getting beaten in the streets. They were getting beaten to a pulp in the streets. So they started actually wearing armor and uniforms.
Yeah. That's amazing.
It's so cool to me. He's like one of my heroes of the faith. Because the Salvation Army is still around and they're still doing really great stuff. They're still one of the most giving organizations in the world, and they still love the Lord, and all because this guy took a stand in a time where it really wasn't that popular to think about it. England, you were like, that's a Christian nation. These people are preaching the gospel on the streets, getting beaten the crap out of in a Christian nation.
That's insane. Doesn't sound like it's any much different than right
No.
now.
Yeah.
It's pretty similar.
Yeah. So let's be heroes of the faith.
Yes.
This is the time. You know, some people get really discouraged, and I'm like, you know what? This is really exciting. We can be William Booths. We can be Dietrich Bonhoeffers. We can be those people today if we decide, you know what? I'm going to stand for the Lord no matter what. Bring it on.
Right. And don't get discouraged about your past. Up to today, change it now. No big deal. If you're 75, you can still change it.
Yeah.
Who cares?
Corey Ted Boom was pretty old when all that happened, and they were just Corey Ted Boom and her family. They just worked on watches. Read that book. Read that story because it's really cool.
I don't know who that is.
Oh, so her and her family lived in the Netherlands. They were Dutch, right? And so they hid Jews during World War II.
I think you were telling me about that.
Yeah.
Not maybe in the podcast, but okay.
So they were hiding Jews, and, you know, they created a whole network to get them out without going to the concentration camps.
Mm-hmm.
And before that, they were just a little family who worked on watches, and they became this place in town where people would actually just stop by and ask for advice. And they lived such a way, you know, they lived together, and they would read the Bible at dinner time, and they'd just talk about the Lord, and they would worship together. It's a beautiful story.
Really?
And then World War II happens, and they're coming after the Jews, and they're like, we can't just let this happen. And so they start building this network, and it's just these two older ladies that are sisters in their father.
Wow.
And they saved so many people, and then they ended up in the concentration camp, and they were leading Bible studies and worship services in the concentration camp.
Really?
Yes.
Well, that's another book.
It's beautiful. And so I think Corey Ted Boom is the only one who lived after that.
Wow.
But powerful.
That is powerful.
Influence. Because, I mean, like, dude, you and I ended up in a concentration camp. I don't know if I would feel like leading Bible studies and worshiping Jesus.
No.
I don't know. I'd be like, I would struggle.
Yeah, I think we'd have to get past our whole Western mindset of licking our own wounds.
Yeah.
It's like, instead of tending to others' wounds.
Yeah. But, like, wow, you had such an understanding of Jesus that you opposed Nazi Germany, and you created a whole network, and then you got caught. And what did you do? You were having revival services, basically, in a concentration camp.
That's amazing.
Like, whoa.
Yeah, I might have to read that one, too. That's insane.
Yeah. Totally unsuspecting, right? Just old lady.
Yes. So women, older people, you're not done.
Nope. We need you. We need you in the kingdom. We need you influencing. We need you pursuing the Lord and pursuing righteousness.
Right.
All right. Until next time, everybody. I hope you enjoyed. I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation.
Yeah, this was a good one. Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, comment things you would like us to discuss. If there's anything you were offended by, apologies in advance. That was not our intent. Hit us up if you want to talk about it. We'd love to.
When we'd love pushback.
Yeah, we have actually already done a little bit of it. Had a great conversation. And we actually disagreed, and it was okay.
Right.
And so we're not afraid of that. And I think that's part of the reason we're doing it, actually, is that we all start to come to a place where we can have conversations and disagree with each other, and it's okay.
And you can still walk away in love and say, you know what? Awesome.
Yep. There you go. So like and subscribe, hit that notification bell, and we'll see you next time.